Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Grande. I'm here today again with Sharina, Recovery Mum. Welcome, Sharina.
Hi everyone.
So today we're going to be handling a couple of questions I think are fairly interesting questions, and they're about borderline personality disorder, romance, relationships, and also friendship. So a couple interesting questions, and I think we'll have a good discussion about this. I'm feeling pretty good about today's video. Are you, Sharina?
I sure am.
Good. All right. So the first question is about borderline personality disorder, and it's kind of relating this to another very popular question we see, which is, can people of the opposite sex who are heterosexual be friends? So can a man and a woman be friends? But this question is adding the component of, what if the man or the woman has borderline personality disorder? Right, so kind of an age-old question that many people have tried to answer, including researchers, but here with the twist with borderline. So what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think, like, when you bring BPD into the mix, I don't think it can really work, just them being friends. I mean, I've done a video on this recently, and I've tried to kind of argue both sides, and I've looked back on friendships that I've had with males, and I was fine just being friends with them, but that's because I didn't see them in that way, and there's two people involved, and what I've always found is one of them has got some kind of ulterior motive. You think it starts off as friends. I've been friends. My ex-husband and I started off as friends. But then my feelings got involved. And with BPD, we can get very intense feelings. We can get very attached to someone. And so when we are friends with someone, if someone's kind of looking out for us and just being nice, as friends are, it can be very easy for us to take it the wrong way and start picturing ourselves in a relationship with them and getting married and having children. But I have, like I said, had friends that are guys before, and out of all of them, I think it was possibly only one or two that didn't try it on. And we were supposed to be friends, and so yeah.
Yeah, you know, I find this question pretty fascinating. We were talking before we were recording, and I read a number of articles on this, and I didn't think this was really a settled question, but I didn't realize how much controversy there is over this issue. People get really upset over this question, not specifically with the borderline personality disorder, but just, can cross-sex friendships work, right? And I was thinking about this idea of intimacy. I think is probably one of the keys, right? So if you define a friend as somebody that you share kind of everyday details with, and maybe some of your aspirations and hopes and tribulations, then I guess it could work. I mean, it's at some level I could see, how a man and woman could be friends at that level. But I think if you introduce intimacy, like deep feelings, which is, according to the research, one of the main reasons that men enter into those relationships, right? To have somebody they can talk with about emotions,
okay,
right? With whom they can discuss emotions, and women, interestingly, similar reasons, but also there's kind of a perspective that they feel they gain from having a man as a friend, like to know how men are thinking. So the reasons for getting into it are a little different. But yeah, I think once you introduce intimacy, which again seems to be the goal, of having one of those relationships, then that's when things can not start working out too well, right? That's when I think the romantic feelings start entering in, and it becomes complex. And then you add the borderline personality component, either on the male side or the female side, and you have somebody who experiences emotions intensely. We've talked about that in other videos and before this video. And what the research says, what I think is fascinating, is that people that are high in openness to experience and extroversion are much more likely to enter these relationships, and the friends with benefits relationships that we'll talk about in a moment. And so you have high openness to experience as a risk factor, and then you have borderline personality disorder that's associated with high openness to experience. So it seems like there'd be a greater risk of getting into the relationship in the first place associated with borderline personality disorder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like another thing that I was kind of just thinking of just now is you can take a male and a female and they can be friends, but then what if one of them meets someone else? The whole dynamics changes. And like I've been in a kind of situation like this, both ways round actually. And when my friend met someone, I kind of felt that being abandoned, so I would split and think they were a really bad person, when actually we were just supposed to be friends. So why did I then think, oh, he's with her now? We were just friends. But yeah, and the other way round as well, where a male friend has been really funny with me when I've then entered into a relationship, and so I've had to end that friendship. And obviously for the partners as well, because I think this is why I did the video on my channel actually, about being jealous if your girlfriend has an opposite sex best friend. And with certainly if someone's got borderline and their partner has a friend of the opposite sex, that can cause a whole load of problems as well, because I think from someone with borderline's point of view, we are sure that they can't just be friends. There is more to it. Even if you're in a loving relationship and you trust your partner, it doesn't mean we trust the other person. We trust that girl that's friends with our partner. So
yeah, I think when you introduce the idea that the people could be in romantic relationships of their own, that definitely, I don't know, it makes it seem like just a bad idea. That, of course, wouldn't be a bad idea for everybody, but it's going to lead to jealousy. And jealousy is an associated characteristic of borderline personality disorder. It's not in the symptom criteria, but we know it's a characteristic that we see really with cluster B personality disorders in general. So, yeah, you're taking something that's already there, a little fire that's already burning, and you're really fanning the flames when you start introducing these cross-sex relationships when people are married or partnered up. So, yeah, I think of it as just, I don't know, I might be just simplistic on the issue, but I look at it as an unnecessary risk. It introduces all kinds of risk, and I'm not clear on how the benefits outweigh that.
Well, my ex-husband and I, when we got together, we were friends, and I pursued him and chased him down, and we got together and we got married, and I had to let the jealousy go because jealousy used to eat me up. He had female friends, and I kind of, one day I thought, this is just driving me insane. I have to trust him. And somehow I kind of overcame that jealousy. To the point that I went kind of to the other extreme. I don't know if I faked it to make it to start with, but I was like, yeah, I'm really cool with him having female friends, and he's friends with my friends, and he was like really sociable, and I had a really good female friend, and we would go out together, we'd go drinking together, and I was expecting my daughter when she was expecting her daughter, and then we had the baby, so we would meet and go out, and on a weekend we might go out of an evening, but I would leave at like 7 o'clock because I'd want to bring my daughter home. But my friend would stay out, and my husband would say, oh, I'm just gonna stay, do you mind? I was like, no, it's fine, have fun. And he wouldn't come home till really late, and he'd say, oh, I walked your friend home. And I used to think, what a nice guy. And this went on for a long time, and I just started getting an uneasy feeling, and I started questioning him. And one day he said, okay, I've got something to tell you. I phone her in secret. And swore nothing sexual happened. They never kissed. And I do believe them. He said it was just someone I could talk to about things that were going on. And for me, that was so much worse. It was an emotional affair. Mm-hmm. So then what, like, they just had this real close friendship. But as his wife, I kind of like, well, aren't I supposed to be that person that you share those things with? And so, yeah, like they would say they were just friends, but for me, that friendship actually destroyed our marriage. We got divorced, and yeah, it was just like you said, them being intimate, like telling each other their deepest, darkest secrets and stuff.
I think that's really the whole key to it. You know, I think, like I said before, a lot of people get upset on this topic when you suggest that there could be any type of difficulty with those relationships, but they might be defining friendship differently than I'm defining it, or you're defining it. And to me, friendship, you know, I mean, you could say close, casual, lifelong, best, good. There's a lot of descriptors for friendship.
Yeah.
But it has to involve intimacy. I mean, you know, the way I define it would have to involve intimacy at some level.
Yeah.
To really qualify as friendship, I think the way it's being discussed. So if somebody says, well, no, it doesn't have to involve intimacy, well, then, yeah, I guess that's okay. You know, I don't have a problem with that. But once you introduce that, yeah, you're exactly right. That becomes kind of an emotional affair. And that reaction that you were discussing, I've seen so many times, which is, you know, the person in the romantic partnership just kind of feels, well, you know, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm good enough to be the husband or the wife or whatever, but I'm not good enough to hear the details of somebody's feelings. Yeah. And it is a betrayal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I also saw this is an older study, but I wanted to mention the statistic. I found this interesting. It was a study with a fairly good sample size that showed that half of the people in these cross-sex relationships in this particular sample, over half said they had a sexual attraction for the other person. So, you know, and I talked about this before we recorded too, in that I think that, you know, maybe some of the naivete around this issue is that some people believe that a man and woman, you know, heterosexual man and woman get together and they can do different things in social groups or at work or whatever and talk about feelings, and they somehow forget that sex exists. Yeah. Right? It's like, what's that? What's sex? And my experience has been people never forget that sex exists.
Yeah.
Right? Sex occurs to people. So it has to be dealt with. You know, the feelings behind it, the drive would have to be dealt with. So if over half, at least in that sample, had a sexual attraction, that seems problematic to me. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So the next question, this is related and I think also interesting, is how does borderline personality disorder fit in with this other social construct we see, which is the friends with benefits? I don't want to call it a movement. I guess it's the friends with benefits phenomenon, or I don't know what you call it. Thoughts on this?
My thoughts, as someone with BPD, I cannot see it ending well, because we desperately want to be wanted, and we have a fear of abandonment, we have intense emotions, we often can have a low self-esteem. So if we have a friend that we have benefits with, basically, I would say our feelings are going to grow. It's not just going to, we can just take the sex and then remove ourselves from the situation. Emotions are eventually, maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but over time, we will get emotionally attached. And I suppose the best way we'd realize this is if our friend then told us one day, oh no, I can't come round, I've met a girl. How would that make us feel? Because I know for me, if I was in that situation, I would be devastated. I would feel like I'd been abandoned. I'd feel they had cheated on me, even though we're supposed to just be friends. And I wouldn't take it well. It would really knock my self-esteem, because I'd think, I'm your friend. Like, we're supposed to be friends. How can you do this to me? But yeah, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think this. I think this one I probably even have stronger feelings about than the first question, the whole friends with benefits movement. And again, the word naive just kind of comes up. I mean, so you're going to take something like sex, sexual activity, and you're going to try to keep romance out of it and still maintain a friendship with intimacy. It just seems like very unrealistic based on the way people are built.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's not like just having sex with a stranger that we've got no other relationship to. It's a friend, someone who we've already got some kind of relationship with.
Yeah. So I'm highly skeptical that this is a good idea in hardly any situation. I guess there's always going to be exceptions, right? There's always going to be people that made it work. But I looked at the research on this too. I found it interesting. Most of these relationships have an impulsive start, so they're not well defined. I think the way we see it portrayed in the media is much more clinical and structured. Like people have a conversation.
I was down and say, shall we be friends with benefits?
Right, yeah. They're like doing a little chart, like here's what we'll do. Here's all the rules. And usually it's impulsive and often involves alcohol. That's what the research says.
Probably a drunken night. Yeah. And then just like, oh, that was fun. We'll do that again sometime.
Right. Yes, you have to wonder if that's really, well thought out. And another interesting component is at the very beginning of these deals, or whatever this would be called, 25% of the men wanted a relationship with more, wanted romance, and 40% of women wanted romance. So yeah. It also just seems like a lot of miscommunication. If you have that large a percentage saying, I want something different than what we're agreeing upon.
Yeah. And that's just the ones that have admitted it, or are aware of they want more. There must be a bigger percentage that probably want more, but might be fighting it, or just not consciously aware of it at this stage, or just give it some time.
Yeah, and, another thing here about in terms of it turning romantic is about 10 to 20% of these relationships turn into a romantic relationship. So people have made the argument that, well, maybe this is just a new way that people date. Maybe they start with friends, then they add the sex in, and they just save the romance. But the research tells us that when these relationships turn to romance, they're actually much worse off than if they had a traditional start where they were honest about, the goals and included goals of romance. So, yeah, I don't think I feel like it's a way to try to beat the system, in many situations. And then if you add the borderline component, into that, I don't see how it. Yeah.
I don't think it can.
Yeah.
So if one of the partners, one of the friends has BPD, it's not going to end well. It's just I cannot see how it could possibly end well.
Yeah, the symptoms of borderline personality disorder don't seem compatible with that type of negotiated relationship, right? The fear of abandonment and the anger component and the relationship instability. I mean, how would that even work when somebody's saying they don't want a relationship like that? Like
rejection.
Yeah.
You're so rejected. And it kind of is weird because like the friends with benefits kind of shows like, yeah, we can be friends, but sex is involved. And the first question, it's like, can males and females be friends without that thought of sex?
Right. Yeah. So maybe in a sense, the friends with benefits arrangement is an answer to the, attempt to answer the first question, no, so we'll do this instead. Yeah.
That's your answer.
Yeah, it's a good observation, right? I mean, in a way, those two theories are kind of at odds, right? Yeah. And alternate explanations. So what it comes down to is, same thing. People don't forget about sex. It's involved in a lot of places in life. Intimacy is involved in a lot of places in life. And every time people try to alter, what I consider fairly stable laws of attraction and romance, the percentages aren't good. There's always going to be some that work out, like I mentioned, but the emotional complications, particularly when you add a personality disorder like borderline personality disorder, it's a relational disorder. I think it's just easier in most cases to go with the more traditional route.
Yeah, Absolutely. And I think with the second, the second question, the same way you answered it with the first, like if it's someone you're intimate with, it makes it's a whole different thing, isn't it? Because if you've got that intimacy, like you tell them everything and you've got the sex, well,
Yeah.
how can it not be like romantic? How one of the couples will definitely fall into the trap of thinking this is more than what. Yeah.
Right. I think another point there is that when does romance start? What is romance? Right. I mean, romance would require, I guess, intention to have a relationship that goes somewhere, right? That has the deep connection, but you have the intimacy and you have the sex.
Yeah. Isn't that it?
So it's kind of like, well, what's left? You're just not saying it. You're just not saying it's a romance, and you're just not planning to have a life together.
It's just without the commitment.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. That's it. It's a failure to plan a future together, a failure to commit to that one relationship. So that's what people are trying to surgically extract from this complex dynamic. And
those of us with BPD, we want commitment, even though we might be a bit ourselves. We want to be wanted. We want to, even though our relationships are unstable, we actually crave stability. It's just due to our traits, we're unable to have that stability all the time.
Yeah, it makes the stability kind of challenging to achieve. But I think aspiring toward it and setting off with a traditional expectation increases the chances of success. To say, look, this isn't going to be a complex relationship. One person loves the other person loves them back in every way, romantic, sexual, intimacy, friendship. That just seems very clean compared to trying to do like this whole thing with the legal contract. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it feels very legalistic.
Yeah.
So, all right. So those were our questions for today. Great questions. And if you have any comments, any ideas, I know these are complex topics and we just touched on a few things. We didn't define friendship all the way because that could be a whole nother video, and define what borderline symptoms are present. So if you have any thoughts, anything you want to add, please put those in the comments. As always, Sharina, thanks for coming on my channel.
Thank you.
And we'll be working on more videos, so keep the questions coming. As always, thanks for watching.